When you get out of here, go back to your parents' house, okay? My husband coldly said this to me as my surgery for breast cancer loomed tomorrow. What? What do you mean? I can't see you as a romantic interest. I want a divorce. This was a further blow to my inability to comprehend. Everything went dark before my eyes and my mind went blank. However, my husband was yet to realize that he was the one who would lose everything. I am Jenny, a 28-year-old housewife. We've been married for 3 years. My husband, Steve, is 34 years old. He works in sales at a general trading company and is a promising young employee expected to have a bright future. I too worked at the same company previously. I've always loved mathematics and even majored in it in college and went on to graduate school, but I was not able to get a research job. When I started thinking about getting a job, feeling the barrier of being a woman in pursuing a career as a researcher, I chose to work for a general trading company. That's where I met Steve, who would later become my husband. Are you a new employee? If there's anything you don't understand, feel free to ask. Steve cheerfully approached me, who was assigned to the same department. I might say this myself, but having been a finalist in a beauty contest during my college days and being tall, I think I stood out quite a bit among the new employees. Thank you very much. I responded with a cheerful face. Though many men had approached me since my student days, focusing only on my appearance and not really listening to what I had to say, I had become accustomed to brushing them off with a polite smile. However, Steve felt different. Perhaps I was naive from spending all my time in the university lab, surrounded by similar peers and engaging in discussions. Despite my flashy appearance leading to misunderstandings, I was surprisingly shy and reserved. Are you seeing someone, Miss Jenny? Asked by Steve, I answered with a bashful smile. No. I'm not. That gesture seemed to surprise Steve, who then smiled shyly as well. I was wondering if you'd like to go out with me? Faced with such a direct proposition, I nodded honestly. I had never been approached so seriously before. And so, my relationship with Steve began. He always chose wonderful places and shops to take me to. For me, who had hardly ventured out of the university campus before, everything was new to me. A year later, at a dinner celebrating my birthday, he presented me with a ring. Will you marry me? When he said that, I felt as if I was soaring to the heavens, thinking such dramatic moments really do happen. I accepted his words with a nod. So, I want you to quit your job and wait at home for me to return. Is that okay? Steve continued. You want me to stay home? It's fine by me. I answered. Originally, it wasn't like I had much I wanted to do at the company, and I thought being a housewife would give me time to read my favorite books between house chores. Later, we went to greet each other's parents on a different day. My parents were overjoyed. That was to be expected. The daughter, who had been attending college in plain clothes and doing unfamiliar research, came to greet them with her marriage partner. My parents' house is what you might call wealthy, owning lots of land and buildings, and my parents live off the rental income. Not needing to work for a living, they run a hobby cafe next to our home. Upon hearing we were getting married, my parents offered to build us a new house on a piece of land a bit away from their home, insisting on paying for it as their gift to us. However, since I'm an only child, they had one condition: they wanted Steve to take my last name. Steve was surprised to learn my family was wealthy and was doubly surprised they were preparing a new house for us. It's not surprising. While his colleagues are burdened with mortgages, he was getting a new house without paying a dime. A few months later, we returned from our honeymoon after the wedding and started living in our new home. As my husband wished, I quit my job and became a full-time housewife. I thought I'd have plenty of leisure time as a housewife, but I was wrong. I wake up early to prepare breakfast and see my husband off, then do the dishes, laundry, and clean the yard. By the time that's done, it's already lunchtime. Eating alone, I quickly finish and start cleaning inside the house. Living in a detached house is tough. I'm exhausted. Just when I finally have a moment to rest, it's time to start preparing dinner. I had no time to read or relax. There were times I was so tired I forgot to prepare dinner. Then, my husband would yell at me furiously. I'm working hard and coming home tired. There's no dinner or bath ready. What's the point of having a full-time housewife? Even when he says that, I'm not a robot. I have days when I'm not feeling well or just can't do it. Hey. I'm sorry about earlier. And then, at night, he'd sweet-talk me, wanting intimacy. I'm tired, let me sleep. When I refuse, he instantly becomes sulky, which is troublesome. Reluctantly, I give in to him, wishing only to get some sleep. Still, I convinced myself that perhaps this was just what married life was like. My husband, who worked at a trading company, often worked overtime and went on business trips for negotiations with importers. During those times, I felt lonely by myself, but it gave me a sense of peace. Entering our second year of marriage, my husband's attitude towards me changed noticeably. Whereas he used to come to me apologetically after shouting, now he often just went straight to bed. He was still busy with overtime and business trips, but there was a different atmosphere. Looking back, it might have been signs of infidelity. When I finally asked him, he answered irritably. I've been put in charge of a new product project recently. It's tough on me. Can't you just leave me alone for a bit? I believed him at that time. One night, unusually, he came home early and sought intimacy after a long absence. Perhaps due to my own frustrations, I responded willingly that time. What's this? While touching my chest, my husband said that. When I felt it myself, there was a hard lump in my left breast. You're right. There's something there. There was no pain, so I hadn't noticed it until then. The next day, feeling anxious, I looked up a gynecologist nearby on the internet. Luckily, there was a well-regarded doctor close by, so I quickly made an appointment for an examination. On the day of the examination, feeling overwhelmed with anxiety, I was greeted by a kindly-looking female doctor with a smile. Don't worry, it'll be okay. Please remove your underwear, put on this shirt, and lie down on your back, okay? I did as the doctor instructed and lay down on the examination table. She felt around with her palm and occasionally pressed with her fingers to check the hard areas. Then came the breast X-ray and mammography tests. After that, blood tests and a biopsy were taken by inserting a needle into the lump. When the tests were over, the doctor said, "We won't have all the results today, but we'll contact you when we do." Although she smiled, her expression seemed sadder than when I arrived. That night, I wanted to talk to my husband about it, but he didn't come home. I spent a restless night. The next day, when he came home, I confronted him about the previous night, and he said nonchalantly, "A sudden work thing came up, and I had to prepare some documents. Sorry for not contacting you." So? How did it go? I don't know the results yet, but the doctor's demeanor didn't seem good. I said, my voice trembling with tears. I was overwhelmed with anxiety. Isn't it going to be okay? He said this without even looking at me. Does he even care about me anymore? The tears I had been holding back streamed down my cheeks. Unaware of my tears, he was absorbed in exchanging messages on his smartphone. I collapsed onto the bed and before I knew it, I had fallen asleep, my pillow wet with tears. Morning light filled the room, but my husband was already gone. Days passed, and I was notified that the results were in. My heart sank. I wanted to talk about it, but since that day, my husband hadn't come home. Entering the examination room, I was greeted by the solemn face of the female doctor. "Please, have a seat." I sat down as told. "There's a suspicion of breast cancer. I will write a referral to a larger hospital. Which one would you prefer?" The female doctor informed me. I was in such shock that I couldn't think straight. "Anywhere good, if you know a place." That was all I could manage to say. Then, the female doctor mentioned the name of the nearest major hospital. "Sure, fine with me." I didn't care where, as long as I could get treatment. Later, with the referral in hand, I headed to the recommended hospital. I underwent a series of tests again. This time, they included an ECG and lung tests. They needed to check if I was physically capable of undergoing surgery. After that was the consultation. Would you like to be informed of all the test results? The doctor asked quietly. Please, tell me everything without hiding anything. I responded. Then, please come back with your family members to discuss the detailed symptoms of the illness and the treatment plan going forward. The doctor said. Yes. I replied, nodding. I thought. I need to talk to my husband and parents. When I finally spoke to my husband, who had returned after a long time, about it, he blurted out. Me too? I'm really busy with work. Isn't it fine if just your parents go? Don't you care about my health? I wanted to scream that. Please don't say that, I want you to hear it with me. I muttered, my voice shaking, barely getting those words out. All right, I'll try to make some time. He said reluctantly. The next day, I visited my parents' cafe and asked them to come with me to hear the diagnosis. I had informed them that I was unwell and had undergone some tests, but seeing their panic when I made my request was something I had never seen before. So? It can be cured, right? It's going to be okay, isn't it? My mother was on the verge of tears. How could I answer that? I didn't know. I had been told to discuss the treatment with my family altogether. I faced the day with a shrinking feeling from the stress. I arrived at the hospital a bit early with my parents, waiting for my husband to arrive. But no matter how long we waited, there was no sign of him. I tried calling his cell phone. Is it today? Sorry, but I've got an important meeting coming up. What a thing to say. Hadn't I informed my husband? Didn't he listen? What happened to Steve? My father asked, concerned. Oh, he said it's sudden work, he cannot come. I answered with a forced smile. I thought it was unnatural, but I had no other choice. In the end, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. The word cancer, as told by the doctor, was unexpectedly heavy. My steps on the way home were heavy, too. I have breast cancer. I told my husband when he returned from work. I see. He responded indifferently. Such an attitude is unacceptable when your wife is seriously ill. And, I have surgery the week after next. I might lose my left breast. I said, holding back the urge to cry. Can't be helped, right? If it's for the illness. He dismissively said. Is that all? You don't care if I go through something like this? I cried out to him and then locked myself in the bedroom. Since that day, my husband hasn't shown his face. Every day, I cried out of fear. Accompanied by my parents, the day of my hospital admission arrived. Wouldn't my husband come even on such a day? The thought made me even sadder. Then, on the day before the surgery, my husband appeared in my hospital room. I thought he had come to visit out of worry, but the words that came out of his mouth were shocking. After the surgery and discharge, go back to your parents' house. I don't need a woman who might lose her left breast. What a terrible thing to say. Isn't this the time when we should support each other as husband and wife? I cried out, but he said nothing more and turned to leave the room. I wondered if I could go through the surgery feeling this way. However, surprisingly, I felt a surge of strength within me. I won't let him have his way with me like this. I will beat this illness no matter what. That was my resolve. On the morning of the surgery, I told my parents about what my husband had said the day before. Steve said that? Divorce him. A man like that is not worth it. My father expressed his anger openly. That's right, Jenny. Not only is he not by your side when his wife is going through a tough time, but he also says such cruel things to a patient before surgery. I can't believe he was that kind of person. My mother couldn't hide her anger towards my husband either. Yeah, but right now, wish me luck. I won't lose. I said those words before heading to the operating room. When the surgery was over and I woke up, I was in the intensive care unit. I was told I would be connected to monitors overnight until it was confirmed that the anesthesia had completely worn off and my condition was stable. Fortunately, the cancer hadn't spread as much as feared, and it wasn't necessary to remove the entire left breast. I felt a bit relieved. If the wound healed well, I could be discharged and continue recovering at home in about 2 weeks, the doctor had said. However, about a week after moving to the general ward, I received a sudden call from my mother. My father had collapsed and was taken to the hospital by ambulance. It was a heart attack, and by the time he arrived at the hospital, it was too late. I never imagined such misfortune would befall my father, especially since my surgery had gone well, and I was looking forward to being discharged. Being hospitalized, I couldn't do anything, so it seems my mother and relatives managed the funeral. Even at such a time, I couldn't get in touch with my husband. When I contacted his company, they said he was on a business trip abroad and wouldn't be back for a while. I asked the company to somehow get a message to him because my father had passed away. It frustrated me that I couldn't do anything when my father, who had been so worried about me, had died. After being discharged, I returned to my parents' home. Not because Steve had told me to, but because I needed to discuss my father's inheritance with my mother. Then, I got a call from Steve. Congrats on getting discharged. I heard your dad passed away? My condolences. By the way, I need to talk. Can you come over to the house? Despite the fact that his father-in-law had passed away, Steve's tone was cheerful. As if he had been waiting for it. All right, how about next Sunday? I tried to keep my composure as much as possible while speaking. Okay. Then, I'll be waiting. He responded and then hung up. Mom, what was the ownership status of the land and the house we live in? I asked my mother. It's in your father's name, and he was supposed to be the owner of the house, right? Why do you ask? My mother answered. Can we gather those documents by next Sunday? When I asked, she replied. Gather? All of your father's real estate documents are right here. My mother said while laying out the documents on the table. On the following Sunday, having decided in my heart to divorce Steve, I went to his place with the divorce papers, duly signed, and the registration documents for our house. Steve was at home, waiting with a young woman. She wore slightly flashy makeup but had a youthful face. It was infuriating that Steve had chosen such a woman over me. Come on in, well, it's still your house too. He said, unapologetically laughing. This is what you wanted to talk about, right? I presented the divorce papers in front of Steve. You catch on fast. Makes things easier. Without hesitation, Steve signed the divorce papers and handed them back to me. The woman sat silently next to him, looking at us. It was just perfect timing that your old man kicked the bucket, huh? Now this house is mine. Steve said with a look of joy on his face. Excuse me? What are you talking about? I exaggerated my reaction, laughing mockingly. I spread out the documents on the living room table. Where is your name here? This house belongs to my father. What are you misunderstanding? I exclaimed in disbelief. This house was given to us by your father, and when I decided to take your surname, doesn't that make me the heir to your father's estate? Steve said seriously. If he really thought that, it was a foolish notion. Did you adopt with my father? You didn't, right? You don't own this house, do you? Do you remember signing any documents? The heirs to my father's estate are my mother and me. You have no right to inherit anything. I stated clearly. You were my spouse, nothing more, nothing less. You have nothing to do with my father's inheritance. Then Steve began to falter, what? So, what should I do now? Hey. This is not what we agreed on. You said you had a house and were going to divorce your wife for me. The woman sitting next to him suddenly got angry. Now that I've got your signature on the divorce papers, once I submit them to the municipal office, you and I are nothing to each other. You can remarry her if you want. But this house will eventually be inherited by me. What are you two planning to do? As I flaunted the divorce papers, Steve fell to his knees on the spot, collapsing. Well, if you two want to continue living here, I might sell it to you. But just so you know, the land prices around here have gone up. It's going to be expensive. I said this with a deliberately cheerful tone. Then, Steve quickly looked up and asked, "How much are we talking about?" "Yeah. If we can afford it, we should just buy it. The woman says this while nudging Steve's side. For the house and land together, how about $1 million? I intended it to be an exaggeration, but considering the rising land prices in the area, a combined appraisal of the land and house might actually reach that figure. $1 million. There's no way we can afford that. Are you joking? That's a rip-off. That's way too expensive. Steve and the woman raised their voices in distress. If you think it's expensive, why don't you consult a real estate appraiser or something? But I don't think it's as cheap as you hope. Perhaps overcoming the surgery had given me more courage than I had ever had during my university days. I surprised myself with how assertively I spoke. People really can change. And you, really? Just because you were going to take my surname, you thought you'd automatically inherit my father's assets? You know nothing. I mocked Steve's ignorance. Okay. I apologize. Sorry. The divorce was just a joke. It was all just a game with her. So, don't take it seriously, okay? Steve suddenly started to butter me up with a coaxing voice. You liar. You said you were going to divorce your wife and marry me so we could live in this house. The woman berated Steve with her eyes wide in anger. You had no intention of divorcing your wife and the house isn't even yours? Everything you told me was a lie. The woman's face turned red with anger. I coldly dismissed them. You said you didn't need a woman who's lost a breast, right? You two are perfect for each other. Wishing you a lifetime of happiness. And then, I'll give you a week to decide. If you're leaving, make it quick. Anything left behind after that will be thrown away, just so you know. I said as I left the house. From inside, I could hear Steve being scolded in a shrill voice and something breaking, but it was no longer my concern. If there was any damage, I'd bill them later. I submitted the divorce papers at the municipal office without hesitation. I regretted not suing him for adultery and claiming compensation, but I wanted nothing more to do with such a superficial man. If only I hadn't secluded myself in the lab during my university days and had learned a bit more about the world, I wouldn't have fallen for such a man. Despite the risk of cancer recurrence, I won't give up. I'm still in my 20s, I'll be fine. Life is just beginning. The woman Steve was with turned out to be a junior colleague from my company. They were on the same product planning team and became involved while working late and traveling together for work, as I heard from a former coworker. The affair became known to higher-ups, and both were transferred out of the team to separate departments. Unable to withstand the company gossip, the woman resigned. Steve was assigned to manage inventory at a warehouse near the port, a promotion in title but effectively a demotion to a dead-end job. The company probably saw it as ridding themselves of a problem. It was a pitiful end for someone who was once seen as a promising young employee. I inherited my father's estate with my mother. With land prices rising, we had to settle part of the inheritance tax with land itself. The income from the remaining real estate and the cafe seems enough for my mother's living expenses. I took over the house I lived in with my ex-husband and opened a tutoring school. Many kids struggle with math, my favorite subject. I decided to welcome students from elementary to high school, hoping to share the joy of math and numbers with them. If even a few of them can find the fun in math, I'd be happy. I've also started working on the research paper I left unfinished in grad school. Someday, when things settle down, I'd like to return to grad school and resume my research.
I'm marrying a new woman. Haha.
Huh? What are you talking about?
Since you're broke, there's no point in continuing this relationship. We're done.
He who had used my savings without permission to buy a house is dreaming of a new life with his affair partner. You idiot, go to hell. My name is Tracy, a 34-year-old programmer who works from home. I met my husband David at a mixer party organized by friends. We hit it off talking about asset management, and when I mentioned my savings of hundreds of thousands, he became eager. Although he didn't have much going for him as a man, the conversation was interesting, so we got married. It's been a year since we registered our marriage, and we still don't have any children. Not to brag, but I receive a pretty good salary as a programmer. The assets I've been steadily building since my single days are about to reach the $500,000 mark. If I continue working for this company until retirement, I wonder if I can live without working. Until my assets run out, I can use my time freely. That's the kind of dream life I was imagining just before I got married. My parents died in an accident when I was 12, and I was raised by my maternal grandparents. My grandfather, who was a businessman, always said,
No matter how much money you have, it's never enough.
He would always whisper in my ear,
Money is meant to be spent. Having a lot of money attracts people. Money troubles can really take a toll on your heart.
He used to say,
Money goes around the world a lot.
Anyway, money is never a problem, and if you spend it wisely, it will come back to you. Maybe because I was raised by my grandfather like that, I naturally found saving money enjoyable. From my first day of work, I invested a portion of my salary in investment trusts and built up the assets I mentioned earlier. My husband has been devoted to me since we started dating. He was always a real gentleman. It was like he always put ladies first, which was pretty funny. He would pull out my chair at restaurants. He would open the door to the passenger seat and wait for me when we got in the car. But when it actually happened, I felt loved, or rather, I felt his affection, that was for sure. It was very fresh, and I was proud of my husband. However, my husband changed drastically as soon as we got married. One morning after staying up late until dawn, I rubbed my sleepy eyes and left the bedroom. Good morning. I called out to my husband sitting on the living room sofa, but he was completely absorbed in his smartphone and didn't even glance at me. I took a quick shower and sat in front of my computer as usual. The sound of typing echoed in the quiet room. I focused on my work in the quiet space. My husband patted my shoulder. What is it?
Give me some money.
My husband always asks for money like this. Come on, enough already. I handed him the money and he quickly left the house. When I cut off the money, his attitude became indifferent. The number of times we saw each other decreased and he became colder and colder. I was getting sick of how he was treating me these days. One night when I returned home from being out, my husband was lounging on the sofa. The TV was on, but his eyes were glued to his smartphone. Should I turn off the TV?
Huh? I'm watching it, so don't touch it.
My husband's roughness caught me off guard as he snatched the remote control from my hand, but I quickly brushed it off. My husband, who is just an ordinary office worker, had been given a transfer recently. Could that be why he's in a bad mood? That's all I thought. Since that day, my husband's attitude has been like this all the time. He gets angry easily at anything I say, and he stopped eating dinner at home. One day I called him. Hey, aren't you coming home yet? I'm making dinner.
No, I don't need to.
Huh? If you'd told me sooner, I wouldn't have cooked.
If you're gonna complain, you don't have to cook.
Why is it like this? Is it because of work?
What else could it be?
There was no getting through to him. I thought it would be troublesome to argue back, so I managed to hold back somehow. And finally, the days he didn't come home increased. There was no prior notice, and when I called, all I got was,
I have an unexpected business function tonight and won't be able to catch the last train. Looks like I'll be booking a hotel room.
This was the kind of response I always got. Does the business function usually happen so frequently and unexpectedly? I was unsure, but perhaps it does occur without my awareness. When I began to feel suspicious of my husband's actions, I came across his tablet that was left charging while I was cleaning. He always carries it with him, I thought, but then a message popped up, brightening the screen. Where should we go today? The place we went last time was good, right? There were messages with numerous heart emojis. This was definitely from his mistress. I knew something was off, but when confronted with such blatant evidence of infidelity, a woman's pride starts to ache. Digging deeper, the conversations and photos with the other woman were overflowing. Ugh! Being played for a fool to such a degree? For a moment, nausea overcame me, but I gritted my teeth and took a deep breath through my shoulders. Their interactions were all very superficial and unimportant. What foolish discussions. This is like something middle schoolers would do when they're just discovering puppy love. All I felt after finishing reading those vulgar messages was anger. Despair and anger turned into flames of revenge, and the burning heart gave me courage. If he has a mistress, I'll definitely claim compensation and divorce him. I was preparing for various things with that determination. It was then, contrary to my expectations, that my husband suddenly said,
"Let's get divorced."
Huh?
"I'm marrying a new woman. Haha."
Huh?
"I bought a newly built house too, so it's goodbye to you here."
Without a hint of remorse, my husband declared it cheerfully. Huh? A newly built house?
"I actually bought a house."
Huh? Where did you get that kind of money from?
"Well, from various sources."
My husband had a smug smile on his face.
"I've left the divorce papers on the table, so fill out your part and submit it."
Huh? Just like that?
"We probably won't see each other anymore, but take care."
With the packed belongings prepared in advance, my husband left promptly. It didn't take even 10 minutes for his presence to disappear. In the blink of an eye, I was left dumbfounded and speechless. Before we got married, I was already aware of his careless approach to both money and women. I had prepared myself for this someday. I have plenty of savings, and I earn more than my husband, so even if I end up single, I won't be in trouble. However, my husband's words about buying a newly built house bothered me. Where on earth did he manage to scrape up that much money? I couldn't believe my husband, who always begs me for pocket money, had the capability to buy a house, so I checked the whereabouts of my own bank passbook. It's not here, I can't find it. No matter how much I searched, I couldn't find my passbook. My passbook with $500,000 that I had been saving since I was single. Could it be? When I checked the balance on the banking app on my phone, no way. The balance was $1.16. It had been withdrawn in 3 installments. Tremors of anger coursed through my body as I dropped to the floor, my phone clenched tightly in response to my husband's criminal behavior. I couldn't believe he would go this far. It was truly unimaginable. This was the first and only time I had ever felt so much anger towards someone. I won't forgive him. I'll definitely get it back, and I'll make him pay back double. I visited a law firm on the same day. The lawyer first suggested that I didn't know my husband's whereabouts or how he spent the embezzled money. I should consult the police and file a report. The police can search for my husband and investigate how the money was spent. If my husband is found, I can request the return of the embezzled money through civil procedures, such as sending a registered letter demanding repayment or filing for mediation in court. And if the marital relationship has broken down, divorce is an option, requiring discussions about property division and compensation. I had already decided on divorce, but I put off reporting it to the authorities and consulted the police for now. According to the police officer in charge, embezzling a spouse's savings is generally considered embezzlement or misappropriation. Embezzlement is a crime punishable by law, and if certain conditions are met, criminal penalties may be imposed. Specifically, if a husband embezzles his wife's savings without permission, it constitutes a violation of the wife's property rights and is legally problematic. Also, the husband needs to be proven guilty of planning to embezzle to get charged, and if he took a lot of money, he could face some serious consequences. After hearing detailed explanations from the lawyer and the police officer about this, I understood. To sum it up, my husband's acts of embezzlement and infidelity are serious breaches of trust, potentially providing sufficient grounds for divorce, and claims for damages and compensation are justified. Moreover, those acts are undoubtedly criminal, and if I file a report, the police will investigate. And then, within less than a week, the police helped me locate my husband's whereabouts, Following the guidance of my lawyer, I decided to send my husband a written claim for damages and compensation for mental anguish for the time being. So about a month later, I received a call from him on my cell phone.
Hey, what's going on?
What are you talking about? Of course, the caller was my husband.
I got a bill from a law firm.
Oh, that. I thought it was about time.
Are you serious about this?
Yes, of course. What I had sent to my husband through the lawyer was a bill demanding $600,000 for the repayment of my savings and compensation as a condition for divorce. I had also hinted at criminal prosecution if he didn't comply.
We're married, you know. Your savings should be shared by the married couple, right?
My husband was completely ignorant of the law. Just so you know, whatever money I saved up before tying the knot is still mine, not ours as a couple. So if you took any without asking, I can legally make you hand it back to me.
Impossible. $600,000?
Then I'll sue you in civil court and seize all your assets. I'll even consider pressing criminal charges, so brace yourself.
Damn it.
After muttering something, my husband's attitude suddenly changed.
Fine, I'll pay, all right?
Oh, what's gotten into you all of a sudden?
If I pay off the $600,000, you won't press criminal charges and agree to divorce, right?
Exactly. You catch on fast, don't you? From the laughter on the phone, I could vaguely guess where the money came from. You plan to use your mistress to pay, don't you?
So what? Money is money.
He's still being deceived. He's still seeing that woman without even knowing her background. I had already gathered all the information about her from a private investigator. As a parting gift, let me enlighten you. Do you think of that woman as the daughter of a wealthy family or a CEO's daughter?
I don't need to answer you.
Oh well, listen carefully. That woman is a professional con artist. She approaches wealthy-looking men claiming to be an heiress or a CEO's daughter, takes their money, and then disappears. Several men have filed police reports against her.
No way you're lying. She's the CEO's daughter. I've met her father, and he promised to make me the CEO in the future.
Oh my, you're as stupid as ever. By the way, did you buy the new house in her name? How foolish of you.
It can't be true, right? We were engaged. I even bought her a ring.
Oh, that's quite something. By the way, is she still at the house?
She seemed to be considering something after seeing the documents from the law firm. She said, I'll go back to my parents' house for a while, and left last night.
Oh dear, did she run away?
That's impossible.
Well, we should confirm whose name the new house is under. Well then, let's end it here for today. I said that and hung up the phone. And then, a week later, my husband returned home with a pale face.
That woman sold the house and disappeared.
Just as I thought. You reap what you sow. By the way, you'll pay back my savings and the divorce settlement, won't you?
There's no way I have that kind of money. Please, don't divorce me.
He cheated on me, got dumped by that girl, and even swindled me out of the house. What a despicable human being. I never imagined he would be this foolish. It's too late to play the victim now. I won't give you a single penny, and divorce is definite. Just talking to him gave me a headache.
Wait, I was deceived. I'm the victim, right?
For some reason, my husband is trying to play the victim at this point.
Please, come on, I still need you. I'll dedicate my life to you this time, I promise.
He clung to my legs, begging for reconciliation while sobbing. What a disgraceful sight. It's too late to play the victim now. Everything from taking my money to being deceived by that woman is all your own doing. Be prepared. I forcefully pulled away from my husband, uttered those words, and he left dejectedly. Of course, the divorce was finalized. I promptly filed a criminal complaint against my ex-husband and his mistress, and also filed a civil lawsuit for the return of my money. After a while, both of them were arrested. My ex-husband ended up drinking his troubles away at some shabby bar. The woman who deceived my ex-husband was carrying cash from selling the house with her, but when she was caught, she only had about $10,000 left. In response to the investigation, my ex-husband confessed,
I married for my wife's savings. I never thought I would be deceived in the same way.
He's still playing the victim. Well, that's the kind of man he is. He totally deserved what he got. That woman apparently targeted my ex-husband as her 12th victim, explaining his pathetic state by saying, it was easy to trick him. The total amount she swindled from her previous 11 victims seems to be around $4 million, and she too wasted all on her extravagant host club visits. Basically, if you can't see past your own wants and needs, you're gonna get some bad karma coming your way in the end. Serves them right. Although I was quite dismayed by my own lack of judgment in choosing a partner, thanks to the efforts of my lawyer, the newly built property was successfully transferred into my name without any issues. I had no intention of living in that house, so I rented an apartment and started a new single life. My job as a programmer was going well, and my salary was gradually increasing. I was thinking of starting to save money again, but I heard that there was a buyer for that house. It seems that it's located in an area involved in nearby redevelopment projects and was valued at $1 million. There's no choice but to sell it off. Maybe I'll go on a nice overseas trip. Perhaps a trip around the world someday. I've experienced divorce and even got involved in a crime, but my assets doubled in just a short period. Surely this journey is filled with hope for further asset growth. Watch over me, Grandpa.
Want to take a bath together? What? A bath? What are you thinking? Of course, that's not okay. Why? Why do you say it's not okay? Do I even need to say why? It's obviously not okay. Do you hate taking a bath with me? What? Well, I don't mind, I guess. See, and it's not weird for families to bathe together, right? I froze in shock at our daughter's unexpected words. While I was paralyzed, my husband took our daughter by the hand and went to the bath. My husband and daughter get along well, and sometimes they even sleep in the same bed. It's not bad for a family to be close, but this feels wrong. Also, something else has been bothering me. Our daughter, now 15, is right in the midst of puberty. She's not rebellious but is a good and obedient girl. However, her expression is always gloomy. I've worried about illness, but since she suddenly got so chubby that her uniform doesn't fit, it seems it's not an illness. With so much on my mind, I've been feeling uneasy these days. My unease was quickly resolved by a single phone call. What? We're fine here. Who was that? What? Oh, it was a nuisance call, asking if we're interested in investments. Who listens to such suspicious offers nowadays, right? While he laughed it off as just a nuisance call, his expression was strained. His face was pale. So, I guess I should head to work soon. What? That's early today. Yeah, I have a lot of reservations, so I thought I'd prepare more. Usually, he would have lunch before going to work. But he rushed out of the house as if he were fleeing something. Later, I would learn that the call was from child services. Upon learning why they called, my anger started to boil. And I felt I could crush the phone receiver in my hand. I will never forgive anyone who hurts my precious daughter. I am Angela, a 42-year-old ordinary office worker. My husband, Sam, is 1 year older than me and works in a restaurant. Our daughter, Christina, is 15 and until now, we have lived happily as a family of 3. However, now that our daughter is in her teenage years, our family relationship is in a delicate phase. Dad, take a bath first thing when you get home. Sitting on the sofa without bathing is just unthinkable. I'm tired. I'll rest a bit and then take a bath. Seriously, that's unbelievable. The sofa will rot. Upon arriving home exhausted from work, our daughter didn't greet her father but instead lashed out at him. This has become a familiar scene lately. When my husband heads to the bath, our daughter sprays deodorizer on the sofa with a sour face. Feeling sorry for my husband, I decided to intervene a bit. Your dad is working hard. Be a bit nicer to him. Why are you so cold to your dad? I just can't stand him on a visceral level. Our daughter speaks normally to me. She is only cold towards her father, without any apparent reason. I've experienced it myself. Daughters can unconditionally dislike their fathers sometimes. I feel sorry for all the fathers with daughters out there. But it's not that there are no fathers who get along with their daughters. There are such men around my husband, and he often listens to their stories. My colleague's daughter is 14, but she has no problem going out just with her dad. If it were us, it would just be a flat no. There's no easy solution to this. Maybe just avoid being hated too much and wait for puberty to pass. No, apparently it's not like that. My colleague mentioned some specific points he's conscious of to get along with his daughter. I'm thinking of trying them out. My husband looked confident. Having seen a successful example, he believes he can do it. I think it's not that simple, but if it helps him get closer to our daughter, that's for the best. I decided to watch and see what he would do. First, he tackled his clothing. His work clothes consist of denim and a black shirt, and he wears a bandana and an apron at work. Unlike coveralls or suits. My husband's work clothes are similar to casual wear denim, and a black shirt making it comfortable to wear even on his days off. However, realizing this was inappropriate, he stopped wearing his work clothes outside of work and began buying regular clothes. Additionally, working in a restaurant means he inevitably ends up smelling like food at the end of the day. Therefore, he has stepped up his efforts in body odor control. According to what he heard from a coworker, maintaining a regular life rhythm is also crucial. Oh, you're up quite early today, aren't you? I've decided to start waking up at the same time as you too. Is that okay with you working so late at night? It's fine. Make sure to give me the same breakfast as well. It was unusual for my husband to be around in the morning. His job usually has him coming home late, starting in the mid-afternoon. So he was often still asleep when I would go to work and Christina would go to school. However, this situation seemed to reduce communication with the family, possibly giving Christina the impression that he was always sleeping in. Therefore, he started waking up early to have breakfast with us. He has made various other efforts as well. Despite his best efforts, I hope that my husband might be able to get along with our daughter. Gross. Reality is harsh. Our daughter dismisses her father's efforts to bond with her as creepy and heads off to school. I worried that this might have broken his spirit. Is this still not good enough? What else can I do? Maybe I should listen again. He mutters as if he's talking to a slice of bread. Yet, his spirit seems unbroken. Seeing my husband's earnest efforts, I decide not just to watch but to help. Indeed, it's best for parents and children to get along well. Let's try a little harder. I'll help you. Yeah, thanks. I'll do my best to be a good parent and child. My husband, energized, bites into the bread that he had been talking to as if it were his confidant. At that moment, I had no idea that his efforts and determination would soon take such an unbelievable turn. We, as a couple, decided to execute a plan to improve our daughter's fondness for her father. The first thing I did was to get along better with my husband. It seems that children can improve their dislike for their fathers by seeing their mothers get along with them. Honey, I'll prepare some drinks for your evening relaxation, so go take a bath first. Okay, I always feel bad about this. What are you talking about? You always come back from work late and tired, so this is the least I can do. Our daughter watches our conversation in the kitchen from the living room. As my husband heads to the bath, our daughter looks at me as if she wants to say something. What? What's up? You've been really nice to Dad lately. Did something happen? Who? It's just as usual. Maybe you just haven't seen us talking because you've been avoiding Dad. I see. This seems to be effective. Although our daughter used to avoid even being near her father, she has started observing his actions. Also, I gather information about her surroundings to help her when she and her father do talk. By the way, I heard there's a kid in your grade who got caught shoplifting. Do you know them? Well, they're in the same grade, so I know them. But we've never been in the same class, and I barely talk to them. I see. Just make sure you don't do something like that. I would never do that. I know. Just saying it just in case. If the shoplifting kid had been a close friend, it would have been a sensitive topic that needed careful discussion. But that doesn't seem necessary. I'll tell my husband about it later. My husband and I continue our diligent efforts cooperatively. Thanks to our efforts, the relationship between my husband and daughter improved. Are you going to watch TV? Wait a sec, I'll move from the kitchen chair. It's okay, you can sit on the sofa with me. Really? Is that okay? Of course, it's okay. Besides, it's troublesome to move the drinks and snacks, right? Oh, do we have any drinks? Should I get some from the fridge? Our daughter talks to her father with a smile. Moreover, she's going to the fridge in the living room to get drinks for her father. I never thought such a miracle would happen. While I am happy, I am also curious about why our daughter changed so suddenly. Perhaps puberty is a time when emotions can shift quickly, and our efforts may have drastically influenced her feelings. I'd rather keep thinking that way, as it feels better. The two are sitting on the sofa watching TV, and my husband occasionally glances over at me in the kitchen with a smug expression. His look is boastful, although it's a bit annoying. My husband looks happy because he has worked hard and it has paid off, so I'll accept it. I thought this meant we could now live happily as a family of 3 again. But soon a strange phenomenon began. Christina, I bought some cream puffs from the store. We'll eat them together, right? Yeah, I'll eat. Our daughter no longer avoids her husband. However, her bright expression from before is gone. What's wrong? Are you feeling ill? Not really. It's just that eating cream puffs at night might make me gain weight. So I'll save it for tomorrow. I see. I'll put them in the fridge then. Yeah, thank you. Our daughter retreated to her room. Her attitude toward me and my husband hasn't changed. But it concerns me that only her expression remains dark. Hey, Christina has been acting strangely lately. Have you heard anything? I've heard she's having some troubles at school. Maybe that's what it is. Christina has troubles. Hasn't she told you? It's hard for me to tell you something she hasn't mentioned. I'm the only one who doesn't know. Well, I think she'll talk to you about it eventually. Wait for her to come to you. Until then, let me handle it. I'm hit with a feeling of both satisfaction and dissatisfaction at my husband's words. But given how he's recently gotten close with our daughter, I guess it's okay to leave it to him. As instructed by my husband, I decide to wait for our daughter to come to me. Then, I'll go talk to Christina now. My husband places 2 cream puffs and a juice on a tray. With the tray in hand, he gives me a smug look before heading to our daughter's room. Shortly after he leaves the living room, I hear the door slam shut. It seems he was allowed into our daughter's room successfully. Given the times she has criticized him for sitting on the sofa, this progress is remarkable. Conversely, I have not been able to discuss any concerns with our daughter. It seems the roles between my husband and me have reversed. There's nothing I can do now since she hasn't confided in me. I decided to quietly take a bath and go to bed. The next day, a small commotion occurred at our home. When I woke up in the morning, my husband was not in the bed next to me. He has started waking up early, so I thought he might already be up and headed to the living room. However, he was not there. Nor was he in the bathroom. As I wondered where he could be, I heard the sound of our daughter's room door opening. Since our daughter was talking with him last night, she might know something. Christina, do you know where your dad is? Wait, what? I'm here. Where have you been? I was in Christina's room. We were talking last night and she became anxious as we talked and asked me to stay with her. Christina, is that so? Yes, it's embarrassing, like something a child would say. But I felt anxious and couldn't sleep alone. Please don't say anything else. Our daughter prepared for school without eating breakfast and quickly left. Her expression remained dark, so although my husband listened to her, it seems her concerns were not resolved. Her worries concern me, but there are other things to be concerned about now. You know, even if Christina felt anxious, I think sleeping together is questionable. She is already 15 after all. I understand, but she looked so anxious yesterday. And when she asked me with tears in her eyes to stay, I couldn't refuse. And, did that resolve her concerns? No, not yet. So, she might not be able to sleep alone sometimes. Are you planning to sleep together whenever she asks? Do you expect me to leave Christina alone when she's seeking help because she's anxious? All right. If you say it's necessary to sleep together, I'll concede 100 steps. But can you sleep in our bedroom instead of Christina's? Okay. I think I'm worrying unnecessarily. However, I thought it wasn't good to let my husband and daughter sleep alone together without any precaution. So I suggested a compromise that all 3 of us sleep together. From then on, about once every 3 days, our daughter would come to our bedroom. And she and my husband would sleep in the same bed. I don't know what worries she has. But I understand they are not the kind of worries that can be resolved just by sleeping together. Good morning. Breakfast is ready. Thank you. After a while, her expression remained gloomy. Also, her attitude towards me and my husband was still honest. Only her expression was gloomy, so I suspected she might be unwell. But there was no sign of decreased appetite. In fact, she had recently gained enough weight that her uniform didn't fit. So it seems unlikely to be an illness. The only concern might be her increasingly rough skin. Have you gained some weight? Your skin is rough, too. Have you been eating only sweets? Oh, maybe you had a heartbreak. I intended to make a joke to dispel the gloomy atmosphere around our daughter. But it seems I crossed a line. She threw her barely touched slice of bread down and left for school. That was probably not the right thing to say. It seems I have even misjudged the distance with our daughter. I muttered to the slice of bread like my husband once did, fully realizing that our roles had completely reversed. Then, as if to add insult to injury, my husband suggested something unbelievable. "Christina, shall we take a bath together?" What? A bath? While I was washing dishes, I almost dropped the plate I was holding. I had already conceded 100 steps by allowing them to sleep in the same futon. But taking a bath together, how many steps would that require? I definitely had to stop this. What are you thinking? That's definitely not okay. Why can't Christina and I take a bath if you say it's not okay? I understand if Christina says no, but why you? Do I need to say why? It's obviously not okay. Christina, do you mind taking a bath with me? Oh, I don't mind, I guess. See, Christina and I are close. Plus, it's not that strange for a family to bathe together, right? I was taken aback by our daughter's unexpected words and went into shock. My mind seemed to be thinking and yet not thinking, in a state of panic. Before I could gather my thoughts, my husband had taken Christina by the hand and headed to the bathroom. The sound of the shower came from the bathroom. Our daughter said it was fine to bathe with her father, but I sat on the living room sofa, holding my head, wondering if this was really okay. After a few minutes of panic, I began to regain a bit of composure. Upon reflection, this was indeed not okay. You know, this really isn't acceptable. Please don't bathe with Christina anymore. What? But she said it was okay. Even if Christina says it's okay, it's not okay. All right, no need to shout. After getting out of the bath, my husband came back to the living room, wiping his head with a towel. Our daughter didn't come to the living room but went straight to her room instead. I told my husband firmly that he was no longer allowed to bathe with our daughter, not leaving room for debate. He looked reluctant, but seeing the anger on my face, he understood and agreed. Then, a few days later, on a Saturday. Today is my day off, and Sam will be going to work in the afternoon. Inside our house, it's the usual scene with me and Christina spending the holiday at home, and Sam, who has started waking up early. On such an ordinary and mundane morning, a phone call came in. I'll get it. You keep folding the laundry. He answered the phone. It's not unusual for us to receive calls, or for him to answer them. However, what follows is a slightly unusual turn of events. What? We're fine here. He raised his voice a bit and quickly hung up. The house was quiet, so his loud voice startled me, and I flinched slightly. Who was that? What? Oh, it was just a nuisance call. Something about investing. Who listens to such suspicious offers nowadays, right? He was laughing, but his expression was strained. His face was pale. Well, I guess I should head to work soon. What? Already? You're early today. Yay, we have a lot of reservations, so I thought I'd do some extra prep. Normally, he would have lunch before going to work, but today, he rushed out as if he were running from something. The next day, Sunday, I have a day off again, and Sam is going to work in the afternoon. Our daughter is off from school too, and the same scene as yesterday unfolds in our home. Again, around the same time as yesterday, the phone rang. So, we're fine, okay. Please stop calling. He shouted into the phone and hung up quickly. The house was quiet, so his loud voice startled me. And I accidentally dropped the laundry I was folding. Who was that? The same place as yesterday. Another nuisance call. His complexion was worse than yesterday. It was as pale as could be. I was clearly worried about him. You look pale. Are you okay? Was it really just a nuisance call? I said it was. I told them not to call again, so it's fine. Again, he rushed out of the house as if running from our conversation. If it really was just a nuisance call, merely shouting to stop calling wouldn't be enough. I suspected the phone would ring again. Each time the phone rang, Sam's behavior became more erratic. So I decided I would answer it next time. However, from that point on, the nuisance calls ceased. Though I found it strange, if it was a nuisance call, it was better that it didn't come. And if no calls came, then Sam wouldn't act strangely, so I decided to forget about the phone. A week after the strange calls started, an envelope arrived in the afternoon. The sender was the Child Services Office. Inside, it mentioned something about an investigation. I shuddered slightly as I thought of the unpleasant scenes of Sam and our daughter sleeping in the same bed and sharing a bath, which I had put a stop to quickly. Perhaps someone who heard Sam boasting about how close he was with Christina contacted Child Services. However, our daughter herself had come into Sam's bed. And the bath happened only once before I put an end to it. Additionally, I intended to stop them from sleeping together once our daughter's issues were resolved. I was concerned about the nature of Sam and our daughter's relationship. But since both seemed to consent to it, I didn't think there was a need for Child Services to intervene. Initially, I assumed it was about them, but it could have been a general inquiry unrelated to them. There was also a chance it was a mistake that it was sent to us. Regardless of the reason, it seemed wise to contact them. I called the Child Services nonchalantly, thinking it wasn't a serious matter. But I was informed of an appalling truth by the person in charge. As I listened, anger began to bubble inside me. And I found myself gripping the phone so tightly I thought I might crush it. I would never forgive anyone who hurt my precious daughter. On the night I called Child Services, our daughter and I sat on the living room sofa, waiting for Sam to come home. Her face was set with determination, ready to confront whatever came. This must be hard for her. But I needed her to be strong just this once. I'm home. Bought some cupcakes from the store. Let's eat together, shall we? Unaware of anything, Sam returned home as usual. I glared at him. The atmosphere created by our daughter and me must have given him a clue about the situation. Because instead of heading to the usual spot on the living room sofa, he went to the kitchen and placed the cupcakes he had bought on the dining table. What's with that scary face? Don't worry, I got your cupcakes too. He was smiling, but his expression was clearly forced. He seemed to understand the situation but didn't want to face the reality. I couldn't blame him for wanting to look away from reality, but that wasn't acceptable. I forced him to face the reality. Everything's out in the open now. Everything. Yes, everything you did to Christina. And even after Child Services started calling because of it, you blocked their number to stop their calls. Sam checked my expression and then our daughter's. Realizing he couldn't talk his way out of this, he collapsed right there. I already knew everything that Sam had done to our daughter from her and Child Services. But I needed to hear it from him too. It all started with Christina's friend getting caught shoplifting, didn't it? Yeah. When Mom told me about it, I said I'd never really spoken to the kid who got caught, but actually, we were friends. And then, your friend told you it would be bad if they got caught again. So they asked you to shoplift instead? Yes. And then I got caught by the store staff. I really think it was a stupid thing to do now. Our daughter's voice is trembling. At 15, she's still immature in some ways. And it seems she made a mistake in how she handled her friendship. I think it must be hard for her to talk about this, given that she has already reflected on it. But for the sake of having a discussion with Sam and to reaffirm her own wrongdoing, I hope she can endure it this one time. Christina got caught shoplifting at the store, and they called home, right? It happened on a weekday at the store on the way to school. I had already gone to work, so you answered the call from the store and went to apologize, right? Yeah, that's right. I went to the store, apologized, and asked them not to contact the police or the school. Then, the store people somehow agreed to forgive. That part is fine, but the problem starts from there, doesn't it? Can you explain it yourself? I wanted Christina to think well of me, so I decided to keep the shoplifting a secret from you too. It became our little secret, and we acted as if the shoplifting never happened. And then, Christina started to thank you and treated you with a smile. Hearing the truth from my husband's mouth, my head starts to hurt. I'm not particularly confident in my parenting, but I understand that what my husband did is something you should never do when raising a child. However, our daughter is also very much at fault for what has happened so far. But from here on, I think the blame lies entirely with my husband. You got carried away because Christina started treating you with a smile, didn't you? Now, say with your own mouth what you did to Christina. I told her, if she didn't listen to me, I would tell you and the school about the shoplifting. So you blackmailed your own daughter to sleep with you and take baths together. I can't believe it. Christina's expression darkens as she recalls sharing a bed and taking a bath with her father. It's the same expression I've seen on her face recently. Our daughter couldn't defy her father because he had something over her, and she became compliant. What appeared to be a close relationship between father and daughter was a facade, and she was actually feeling great stress. Also, the stress had physical effects on her. Do you understand how much Christina has suffered? She has developed polycystic ovary syndrome. What? That's a disease? Yes. Christina developed the illness because of the severe stress you caused her. But it doesn't look like it. Sam is shocked to hear that our daughter is sick, but he is the cause. I want him to feel fully responsible, though I don't want his concern. Like my husband, I initially didn't believe that our daughter was sick. We thought she wasn't ill because of her sudden weight gain. Our daughter had suddenly gained enough weight that her uniform didn't fit anymore. But it wasn't because she was overeating. Polycystic ovary syndrome, PCOS, appears to be a condition where the follicles meant to protect the eggs stop growing midway, leaving numerous small follicles in the ovaries. It's said to occur due to hormonal imbalances. And it seems Christina developed this disease due to the immense stress she received from Sam, which disrupted her hormonal balance. The primary symptoms of this disease are irregular menstrual cycles and infertility. but it also seems to make one prone to gaining weight and having skin issues. When did you go to the hospital? Today. I called because we received a letter from Child Services. Probably there have been similar cases. When I discussed Christina's condition, the person in charge suggested that it would be good to have her checked at a hospital. That's right, Child Services. I bragged to others about getting along well with Christina. But I never told anyone about sleeping together or bathing together. You learned about it for the first time from the letter, right? Who contacted them? It was me. What? You did it yourself? I wanted to escape from being controlled by Dad, but because of the shoplifting, I couldn't talk to Mom about it. I felt like I couldn't discuss it with anyone. So I called Child Services myself. They told me that I should first talk honestly to Mom about the shoplifting. But I couldn't bring myself to say it. Christina couldn't say it herself. So it seems she arranged for someone from Child Services to speak for her. That's why they were calling on the weekends when I was home. But you answered the call and even set our phone to block any further calls from Child Services. Doing that is just shooting yourself in the foot. What were you thinking? Well, no matter how you look at it, it's good for parents and children to get along. And fundamentally, it's Christina's fault for shoplifting. Don't say such absurd things. It's wrong for Christina to have shoplifted. But that's also our responsibility as parents. We need to ensure that if our child does something wrong, she must properly atone and reflect on her actions. My anger reached its limit with Sam's completely misguided remarks. Continuing this marriage seemed impossible. I want a divorce. Wait, divorce? Why? You know why. After all the pain you've caused, Christina. Do you expect us to continue as a happy family? Can you please pack your things and leave? Sam stood up weakly and then left the house. Subsequently, my husband and I divorced. I reported to Child Services that we had divorced, that I had custody of Christina, and that my ex-husband was ordered to stay away from her. I thought that the issue with Child Services would be resolved with these measures. But it turned out not to be so simple. The ex-husband used to make close physical contact with our daughter while sleeping, and had our daughter wash him during baths. This was reported to the police as potentially constituting sexual abuse. As a result, my husband was arrested, although he was ultimately not prosecuted. The fact that he was arrested for sexual abuse has had a significant impact. He wasn't fired from his job, but naturally, the reactions from those around him turned cold. Unable to continue working in such an environment, he quit his job. Perhaps seeking a place where no one knew him, he eventually disappeared. As long as I receive child support each month, I don't care where he is or what he's doing. As long as he stays away from us, I suppose I will never see my ex-husband again. My daughter has reflected on her shoplifting. She is now seriously focused on her exam studies. Seeing her sincere remorse, I believe she will be all right going forward. Her health has also improved now that the source of stress, her father's presence, has been removed. She is still taking medication, but she is on the road to recovery. This ordeal has shown me my own shortcomings. If I had noticed the changes in my daughter sooner, I could have resolved the situation earlier. Now, as a single mother, I cannot afford such oversights. I've realized my inadequacies as a mother, and am determined to think more about my daughter's needs and live better for her going forward.
I've filed the divorce papers. Get out in a week. Jamie looked at me with a hateful gaze, holding hands with the woman standing next to him. Perhaps he is trying to show how close they are. Occasionally intertwining their arms or fooling around, I felt like I was being shown something I didn't need to see. It was a sudden illness, but I was discharged from the hospital without any problems. For some reason, Jamie's name is not in the family registry. When I rushed home, there was also a woman I didn't know. I heard that Jamie had used his company's welfare benefits to care for me. Using nursing leave to have an affair, what kind of nerve does he have? He was the type to throw away things that belonged to others if they were not necessary for his life, and it seems he doesn't need me anymore either. I never thought I'd be treated with such contempt while married. He probably thinks he's the one who gets to decide everything, and his word is law. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to act this horribly. However, I have already made moves that Jamie cannot escape from. I intend to make him realize that he's the only one who doesn't know anything. I am Ashley Morgan, a caregiver who works at a care facility, and I turned 40 this year. After graduating from university, I worked in sales for a while but have been working solely as a caregiver since leaving sales. I married Jamie when I was 35, and we met at my workplace. The cafeteria in my care facility is run by an external food service provider. The owner is very particular about the food, which is why special care is given to the meals served to our clients. The zest for life comes from eating delicious food, is the owner's catchphrase, and after comparing several companies, he chose the current one. It's appreciated that a representative visits our care facility 2 to 3 times a month. Jamie was the representative for the food service company. As he regularly visited the facility, we started making small talk. Working in a food-related company, his daily life was very meticulous, which I found appealing. It was refreshing to meet a single man who lived so meticulously, as that was not the common image I had. His day starts with favorite bakery bread and coffee, followed by a dinner rich in vegetables, ending with a relaxing herbal tea. Jamie, you lead a very meticulous life. I'm always in a rush, so I'd like to learn from you. It's nothing meticulous. I'm just doing what's normal. That normal is possible because it's you, Jamie. I don't know where to start. If that's the case, I recommend herbal tea. I'll bring you some of my favorite herbal tea next time, please try it. This herbal tea became a regular topic of conversation between Jamie and me. The herbal tea Jamie introduced me to was very delicious, and I wanted to continue drinking it daily, not just for health. Hello. The herbal tea you introduced me to last time was so delicious that I bought some myself. It seems like I can keep it up daily. That's great. The herbal tea I gave you has a calming effect on a restless heart. I thought it would be perfect for you, Ashley. A restless heart, you say? You seemed tired, so I thought if your heart calms down, your feelings might change too. Jamie's eyes seemed to overflow with kindness as he looked at me. I had always been too busy with others to take care of myself. To think that someone was watching over me like this. I felt a happiness I had never felt before. Since the first time we met, I was somehow drawn to you, Ashley. I'm so happy we can talk like this. If it's okay with you, would you consider dating me? My answer was already decided. If you're okay with me, I'd be delighted. I think I've led a rather unremarkable life, if I do say so myself. After graduating from a university I chose somewhat aimlessly, I was hired as a salesperson at a company but could never quite achieve good sales performance and was always being scolded. I was berated daily as a burden to the company, useless, and eventually, it became too much, and I resigned. By chance, I found a job at a care facility. Working there, I came to realize the profound nature of caregiving and studied every day while working to obtain my qualification. The job was shift-based, including night shifts, and studying while keeping up with this schedule meant I often had to put my own needs last. To think that someone was watching over me as I worked so relentlessly. Despite both of our busy schedules, we found time to spend together. Dates with Jamie were mundane things like shopping or movies. Among these, shopping with the future in mind made me feel happy. How about we get matching mugs? We can use them when we start living together. That sounds great. I've been wanting a simple mug like that. That's great. I get excited thinking about living together someday. We gradually prepared for our future married life by picking out things to use together. While sitting in a cafe we stopped at during shopping, Jamie suddenly turned serious. What's wrong? You suddenly look so serious. Do you have a stomachache? No. It's just that. Don't strain yourself. Should we call it a day and go home? I can't wait any longer. While shopping and thinking about living with you, my feelings have become overwhelming. Will you marry me? Jamie looked at me as he spoke. Had there ever been such a happy moment in my life before? Yes, I'd be honored. I'm so relieved. I thought you might say no. I had no idea you were thinking that much about it. Today was the most nerve-wracking day for me. The tension that had been building seemed to melt away from Jamie's relieved expression. The answer was already decided. With you, Jamie, it seems like every day will be happy. And so, Jamie and I got married. We both had been living alone, but Jamie's apartment was quite spacious for one person, so we decided to live there. I brought the necessary belongings and started our newlywed life at Jamie's place. His apartment remained as meticulously kept as he had described. I had visited Jamie's apartment several times before, so I knew it was meticulously organized, not a speck of dust in sight. Thinking that our new life together was starting here made my heart race. What kind of happiness would await us? Little did I know at the time, however, that this excitement and anticipation would soon be shattered. It had been 6 months since we married. One day, I was preparing for my night shift at home. I usually brought a nighttime snack, uniform, and towels for my shifts, but I couldn't find my belongings. The tumbler was a recent gift from a friend and one of my favorites. I thought so, but I can't find my towel or the tumbler I always use. I thought perhaps Jamie had accidentally taken it to work. But would Jamie really take my towel and tumbler by mistake? No matter how much I searched, I couldn't find them. Having no choice, I decided to use a spare towel in my locker and buy some tea at a convenience store on my way to work. Deciding that, I left for work. The work went smoothly as usual. I wanted to get home quickly, take a shower, and sleep in bed as I had been feeling quite tired lately. And more than anything, since I had been working night shifts consecutively, I missed Jamie and wanted to see him. Rushing with this thought, I hurried home. When I arrived, Jamie, who seemed to be about to leave for work, was in the living room. As usual, he was ironing his favorite shirt meticulously. Ah, isn't that Ashley? Ah, Jamie, good timing. There's something I want to ask you, is that okay? You mean about the tumbler? I didn't expect Jamie to bring up the tumbler. Since he mentioned it, he might know something about it. Yes, I can't find my tumbler or my towel. Do you know anything about them, Jamie? I looked before going to work, but I couldn't find them. Huh, is that so? I think I brought them from my previous house. Is that so? I've already thrown those away. I couldn't believe Jamie bluntly said he had thrown them away. Why? There was no need to throw them away without asking. Things need to be organized properly. He looked at me with a puzzled face, as if not understanding what was wrong. I was shocked to learn that he had thrown them away without my knowledge. The tumbler was a birthday gift from an old friend, and because it was so special to me, I couldn't stay silent when I heard he had thrown it away. Then Jamie sighed as he looked at me. To think you would use something with such poor taste, Ashley. I thought I did you a favor by getting rid of unnecessary items, but that's no way to speak, is it? His face suggested he didn't think he'd done anything wrong, even though he had thrown away my belongings. I was so angry that someone had disposed of my precious items without my consent that I couldn't find the words to respond. Is that all you wanted to talk about? I have to go now. By the way, Ashley, make sure you tidy up your unnecessary items too. Unnecessary items? What does he mean? I had decluttered when we got married and moved into this house to ensure I didn't overcrowd Jamie's place, which had been his bachelor home. Realizing what Jamie might be implying, I decided to look around the house. Although I was exhausted and sleepy from the night shift, a bad feeling woke me up. My hunch was right, there were items that weren't mine in the house: clothes, shoes, bags, and accessories I had bought during my single days. At a glance, I hadn't taken inventory of everything, but it seemed quite a lot had been discarded. I couldn't believe he would dispose of someone else's belongings like this. I had carefully selected and brought only the essentials for our new life together with Jamie. Honestly, I didn't have many personal items, and I wasn't messy. Yet he disposed of them anyway? It seemed that items with bright colors or characters were thrown out. Probably, Jamie had disposed of items he didn't like or that didn't match the interior decor. If he had just mentioned it, I would have considered getting rid of them, but why do it without asking? I was so shocked by having my cherished items thrown away that I couldn't move for a while. Maybe there's something wrong with me for not realizing what kind of person he was, but still, there was no reason for him to throw things away like that. I felt my mind going blank from the shock. I'm not sure how long I sat there, but when I noticed, the sky outside was tinted with the colors of sunset. After returning home, I had been sitting in shock upon learning that Jamie had disposed of my belongings. I looked at the clock, and it was almost 6 p.m. Realizing that Jamie would be home soon, I tried to stand up but felt dizzy. Honestly, I had no appetite and couldn't think of what to cook. While I was still processing this, Jamie came home. I'm home, so what have you been doing all day today? Ah, welcome back, Jamie. I'm feeling a bit under the weather. Oh, is that so? What about dinner? He started to take off his suit and spray it, seemingly uninterested in my well-being. Sorry, I haven't made anything because I'm not feeling well and I don't have an appetite. There's some meat marinating in the sauce though, should I just grill it? Ah, that's fine. He answered grumpily and plopped down on the sofa to start fiddling with his smartphone. What, how long are you going to sit there? You're kind of in the way. Jamie glared at me as if to say I was a nuisance. It was hard to believe this was the same Jamie who used to worry about me first and foremost. Maybe something unpleasant happened at work. Thinking this, I decided to quietly leave the room, but then Jamie stopped me. Hey, you're just going to leave without saying anything? Don't you have anything to say to me? I used to think his eyes were kind, but now they seemed cold. As I felt the chill from his gaze, I responded. I'm sorry I didn't prepare dinner. I'm feeling a bit sick, so I'm going to bed early. I realized too late that he was not as considerate as I thought. Could I really continue to live with him like this forever? I was filled with such doubts. Perhaps because of all these thoughts, I felt worse than ever before. I started getting dizzy easily, and I was constantly battling nausea. Honestly, I couldn't function at work. On my days off, I spent the whole day in bed, and I was taking frequent breaks from work. Even though I used to be the type to bounce back energetically the next day after working hard, now I was falling apart. Tormented by severe ill health, I decided to consult a major hospital. The cause wasn't clear, but since I was feeling so unwell, I had to be hospitalized for tests. After a few days in the hospital without a clear diagnosis and no improvement in my condition, my stay was extended. I felt anxious that Jamie might be angry about it. Then, Jamie visited my hospital room. I'm sorry for the trouble, Jamie, especially when you're busy with work. They haven't figured out what's wrong yet, but I'll get better soon, so please bear with me. Don't be silly, don't apologize. I'll support you as much as I can until you get better. Jamie's smile had returned to the kind one I remembered before our marriage. That Jamie I saw at home must have been upset about work or something. I reassured myself of that. Thank you. All right, I'll head back for today. Oh, and I'll take some leave for caregiving, so call me anytime you need. With that, Jamie left. I remembered he had once mentioned that his workplace benefits included leave for family care. I didn't know the exact details or how long the leave would be, but I remembered thinking that large companies really are different. I felt reassured knowing he could be by my side, but also knew I might need to ask him for various small favors, so I was grateful for the leave. I immediately contacted Jamie with some things I needed him to bring to the hospital, but all my calls went to voicemail. Thinking it was strange, I went to sleep, but the next day, I still couldn't reach him. It was definitely odd, so I left a message, but it never got read. While I felt anxious, I focused on recovering from my mysterious ill health. Thanks to my dedication to treatment, I was able to leave the hospital about 3 weeks later. I informed Jamie of my discharge, but still, no message was read. I worried something might have happened to Jamie. All I wanted was to get home as quickly as possible. Then I remembered that I needed some documents for work. I thought there was a form I had to submit at the government office. It was tough to go there while still recovering, and I was worried about Jamie, but it would be hard to go back later, so I stopped by the office on my way home. There was something off about the document issued by the office. It was supposed to show the data for all family members, but strangely, only my name was printed. It should have definitely included both Jamie and my names. At that moment, I had a bad feeling. I hurried home, and as I approached, I sensed someone else was in the apartment. I smelled a perfume at the entrance that Jamie never used. Entering the living room, I saw Jamie with a woman I didn't know. Jamie, who is this? Jamie turned around with a smirk, closely followed by the woman who then spoke. Is this the person Jamie told me about? Yeah, but it's all okay now. I had no idea what Jamie meant by "it's all okay now." Amid this situation, I found myself calmly noting that it seemed like something out of a drama. I was so shocked that I accidentally dropped my bag. The documents I had received from the government office fell out. Gathering myself, I decided to ask Jamie something. Hey, who is this person? Also, when I got the documents from the government office, only my name was on them. Do you know anything about that? Jamie answered with a smirk. I've filed for divorce. I thought I had misheard, but by Jamie's expression, it didn't seem like a joke. Wait, what do you mean? A divorce paper. That's right, I don't need a defective product. It's just common sense to get rid of what you don't need. He snorted dismissively and glared at me. I thought marrying you would make my life a bit easier, but that's not the case at all. Plus, you're sick and in the hospital with no clue when you'll be discharged. That's problematic. Really. I wouldn't leave Jamie on his own like that. It's best to let go of dead weight. Get out in a week. Katie pointed at me, laughing. Katie is so kind. Honestly, I wish you would leave right now. As they spoke, the two of them intertwined their hands. I couldn't understand what I was being shown. This was the house I had moved into when I married Jamie, and I wondered what these two were trying to say. Jamie then threw a large duffel bag at my feet. My boss is one of those old-fashioned guys who says a man isn't complete until he's married. I just married you because he said he'd give me a big project if I did. Wait, I thought you married me because you loved me. I never actually said I liked you. I just thought you were an easy option for marriage. Obviously, I'd prefer to be with someone beautiful, right? Indeed, Katie was dressed like a modern, beautiful office lady. Her nails were neatly painted, and her hair was stylishly curled. See, timing is everything. The person who can act quickly wins. So, when are you leaving? Jamie pressed for an answer, looking at me intently. So, he had snagged a somewhat prominent woman he often saw at work to impress his boss and secure a promotion. It seemed I was only needed for the sake of marriage, not because he truly loved me. I understood Jamie's feelings all too well. Of course, my response was decided. No, I'm leaving right now. With that, I left the house within 3 seconds. Actually, after being discharged, I planned to stay with my parents in the next town for a while, so I had already sent my everyday items there. Everything I needed for work was in my locker at work, so there were no issues. I stuffed the documents that were on the table next to my bag as I left. Included were some detective agency documents and an envelope printed with Jamie's company's name. I then headed straight to a particular place. My destination was Jamie's office. I had been to Jamie's office 2 or 3 times before for various reasons. In fact, I had received mail from Jamie's company during my hospital stay. It was the mail forwarded to my hospital room. The envelope addressed to me contained several documents necessary for family caregiving leave. It appeared that not only Jamie had to fill out these forms, but as the person being cared for, I also needed to complete some. I brought these documents to submit them directly to Jamie's workplace. Jamie's boss, who had thrown a celebration dinner at the time of our wedding, happened to be there, so I handed them directly to him. He looked surprised as he glanced at me, repeatedly checking the whiteboard in the office. On the whiteboard in Jamie's office, a large magnet that read, "Caregiving leave," was prominently displayed, and beneath it, "Return undetermined," was also written. This meant that within Jamie's office, he was seen as someone who might not know when he could return to work because he was caring for his wife. Given that I, his wife, had largely recovered and was here delivering documents, their surprise was understandable. I was asked various questions by Jamie's boss and answered them honestly. I explained the reason for my hospitalization, the frequency of visits, and details about the support. Jamie's boss looked at me with an expression that seemed to say he couldn't believe it. According to him, what Jamie had told him was completely different from my account, which left him puzzled. However, after comparing the medical certificates and hospital receipts I submitted, as well as the number of days Jamie had taken off, it seemed he believed I was telling the truth. Then, I presented another document. It was a divorce certificate, and Jamie's boss was speechless. If someone who had taken leave to care for his supposedly ill wife was actually divorced, his boss couldn't just stay silent. It seemed he judged it as no different from falsely taking leave, and something had to be done about it. Indeed, what Jamie was doing was clearly skiving off work, and that too with an affair involved. Taking leave under false pretenses for an affair and filing for divorce without consent. That was utterly unforgivable. As I left Jamie's workplace, I noticed that there were dozens of missed calls from Jamie. Wondering if he still had something to say, I was about to put away my phone when Jamie called again. "Hey, you didn't say anything unnecessary, did you?" Trying to contain my irritation at his first words, I responded. "Unnecessary? What do you mean?" "Whatever you say, everyone's going to believe me anyway. Don't get it twisted." With that, he hung up. Was that his way of warning me? He must have assumed I wouldn't say anything out of line. I went to a law firm to discuss filing for divorce from Jamie and seeking compensation for his affair. I provided evidence collected by a detective agency I had hired earlier, along with information about the other woman, and decided to seek compensation from both Jamie and his affair partner. They thought they could take the best for themselves and then ignore the consequences. I couldn't let that happen. The lawyer worked quickly, and within a few days, Jamie and his affair partner had received the documents for compensation claims. Both of them called me in a panic. "Hey, what the hell are you playing at?" "Yeah. What are you doing, you rejected one?" Their voices were shrill like yapping puppies, causing my ears to hurt just from listening. "I'm just doing what's necessary." "Did you really think this would all end without any consequences?" "You're overstepping, Ashley." "When did you find out?" "When?" "I've known for a while. Even though I work night shifts, it's strange not to see your husband for days on end, don't you think?" "That's..." "Thought you wouldn't be suspected if you said it was work?" "I'm the type who wants to know if something doesn't seem right, so I had it investigated." Jamie sounded quite angry over the phone, his breathing rough. You had it investigated? That's low. I think sneaking around with an affair partner while married is much worse. And she's from a company you do business with, isn't she? Who Katie is and where she's from is none of your business. If anything happens to Katie, I won't forgive you. He seems to be living in a fantasy world. He still seemed oblivious to the situation he was in. You have time to worry about others? Well, whatever. Just make sure you don't cause trouble for anyone else. And there was one more issue. Katie, Jamie's affair partner, had not paid any compensation yet. I wonder if Katie thinks she won't have to pay as long as she remains silent, or if she truly believes she's not at fault. Either way, I can't just sit back and ignore this. I decided not to let it slide and consulted with a lawyer again. Eventually, we proceeded to garnish Katie's wages. It seems that her affair was exposed to her workplace as a result of the wage garnishment. I received numerous calls from Katie. I was reluctant to answer the phone, but I didn't want to delay dealing with the hassle, so I decided to pick up. What were you thinking? Because of you, I might get fired. It seems that the affair and the subsequent situation have made her a pariah at work. Both Katie and Jamie, although they work in different places, are apparently being forced to choose between transferring to a rural branch or resigning. Well, if someone who cheats is in the office, isn't it natural for the atmosphere to get worse? Just choose between transferring or resigning, right? No way. I can't live in the countryside. If you hadn't said anything, I could have continued as before. You think you could have continued as before? I couldn't help but ask, feeling doubtful. Yes. I could get married and Jamie would be happy to marry me, and then it would all be happily ever after. I felt a bit of sympathy for Katie. Being oblivious can be pitiful in a way. Do you seriously believe that? On what basis can you say he won't cheat again? With the power of love, there won't be any cheating. You don't need to tell me that. Fine. If you're happy with my leftovers, go ahead. But don't think you can evade paying the compensation. I said what I wanted to say and decided to hang up on Katie. People who do such dishonorable things cannot just be happy as if nothing happened. Thinking you can grasp happiness just for yourselves after an affair is a big mistake. According to rumors, Jamie and Katie are leading miserable lives. Both are stressed out being scorned at work, and they resigned as if fleeing. After resigning, their job search was difficult as the bad reputation had spread to unexpected places. Of course, no one wants to hire someone known for cheating, and they are struggling to find work. About 6 months after the divorce, Jamie called me. Hello, what do you want now? Hey, can I work at your place? I've got nowhere else to go, and I keep getting rejected everywhere. I can't make a living. That's what happens when you do things you can't even tell others about. I was thinking I could work at your place. I was astounded at his audacity. You think you can work at my place? Stop making a mockery of everything. You should realize by now that you're in this mess because of your own actions. With that, Jamie hung up the phone, possibly upset by my firm response. I may never have spoken so clearly to him throughout our relationship and marriage. Finally speaking my mind felt refreshing. I continue to work at the caregiving facility. After being discharged from the hospital, I spent some time at my parents' house but have since returned to work and am enjoying living alone for the first time in a while. Working in caregiving is endlessly educational, and I find it exciting because no 2 days are the same, even after years in the field with qualifications. One day, I was offered a promotion. They appreciated my dedication and wanted me to lead the team as a chief. Honestly, I've never held such a leadership role before, so the offer was both thrilling and bewildering. However, it's an opportunity I'd like to embrace and excel in. Additionally, I received the results from my caregiving certification exam. Fortunately, I passed on the first attempt. With this qualification and a promotion, I can earn enough to live independently without any issues. I'm ready to believe in my potential and take on new challenges.